Well, the idea of the university was not the personal career trajectory; it was the public good. So it was predicated on two concepts: that everybody would have opportunity through the GI Bill or Pell Grants to go to a 4-year college where they would have a exposure to ideas, and they would be given an inductive education. So they would read Dante, they would read Machiavelli, they would read Hobbes, they'd read Homer, they would take a class in the history of science, the basics of mathematical theory. They would take a course on the great artists of the Renaissance, or, cross-cultural studies in India and China. They do all of that. And the professor was not interested in what their point of view was politically. And that changed in the 60s. They said because of Vietnam, the draft, it was the idea, well, society has you, corporation has you, the government has you, your right-wing country has you for the rest of your life, but we faculty only have you for 4 years. So we're going to balance their prejudice with our prejudice. And they politicized and weaponized the faculty and made it deductive, the curriculum. So that's where we are, and it's not for the public good. Nobody in that university system now believes they're turning out young people who are disinterested, educated, knowledgeable, and empirical. No, they're turning out people who are ignorant and arrogant and committed to a particular left-wing jihad. That's what they're doing, and they know it. And so it's time, I think, for the United States to look very carefully at higher education. And I think you could stop it really quick with, 8 or 9 very easy things you could do. You could, number one, say, if, you want to play this game, then your endowment is now not tax-free. So we want everybody to give endowments to these big private universities, Princeton, Duke, but you're not going to get a tax write-off at our expense. Number two, there's going to be no more federal loans. So we want you to issue federal loans, but they're coming from your endowment. So if Harvard's got $60 billion, you can guarantee student loans. And if they default, then you're going to pay for it. Not us, not some guy in a forklift in Tacoma, Washington. And that would, I think, make people say, oh, wow. The more we charge, the more likely they're going to default. So let's try to get them out in 4 rather than 6 years. Let's make sure that half don't drop out, but we get 90% finish. Let's give them real courses, and let's fire all these administrators so that we can have lower tuition and be more competitive against the other college. And when we don't get these bloated loans, then why not I said that before, anybody that has a master's degree in an academic subject, let them teach in K through 12. They don't need a credential. Don't even fight the schools of education. Give them a choice. Just say, you're right, schools of education, your methodology is a good theory, and we'll let anybody who wants to go to your school get a credential. But on the other hand, we'd like to think that you would like a person with a MA in anthropology or psychology or English or history to be able to teach too. And you would see the biggest mass exodus from that brainwashing school of education you can imagine. And if you just said to people, well, you take an SAT, why do people take an ACT or SAT? It was a very good idea. It was predicated on the idea that people were prejudiced against high school. So if you were from Fowler, California, and you had a straight A, they were convinced that was not the same thing from the Dalton School up in New York, right? So they were going to equalize it by taking a standardized test. It wasn't quite equalizing because a person from the Dalton School got prepped that you didn't get at Fowler High School. But nevertheless, it was meritocratic. So why don't we do it on that back end? Just say, you know what, whether you went to Hillsdale or you went to Fresno State or you went to Yale, you're all going to get that BA. You've got to take a SAT on the way out, and you've got to get a minimum math and verbal. We're not going to certify, just like we have to take the bar when you leave law school. And you know what? That would put the fear of God in those places, because they have a deep suspicion that most of their students would score lower after being in 4 years in college than when they entered. I think the college is not as competitive as their high school. And that would be a big help as well. You should get tenure and make it revolving contracts of 1 to 5 years. And if they don't fulfill their requirements or what you adjudicated, then see ya. So there's a lot of things that you could do to reform the university. You would have to say that any university that receives any federal funds has to follow the Constitution. And if it's found that they don't allow free speech and they consistently shout down speakers and people are attacked when they visit their campuses, or they racially segregate in violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, they racially segregate their graduations, their dorms, their safe spaces, then they should have all of their federal funds cut off. It would be very easy to do. I don't know why Trump didn't do that when he had the House and Senate. I do know why. He was unorganized, and Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, I think, were committed to see him fail. But nevertheless, they could have had a very easy reform package at higher education that would have really helped the country and made the higher institutions furious.